Now, there are obviously questions that come up regarding the historical trail and things like this, and really the shroud has a history in Western Europe for 700 years. It has a history in the Byzantine era, going from back to Constantinople, and even further back into Edessa for yet another 1200 years. So it has a very long history, and I'm not going to belabor the history here. That's really more for a full presentation. So you can watch Shroud Encounter and get the history. But I do want to talk about the use of fine twisted linen. This is really intriguing because the shroud has a very distinctive weave. It's called a 3-to-1 herringbone pattern weave with a Z twist. Now, we have found examples of 3-to-1 pattern weave in first century and from before first century, not in linen, which is made out of flax. We have found examples in silk and also wool, but not in linen. Now, the linen that we find is all just this standard, 1-to-1 pattern weave. Now, why is this? Is it because they didn't do it? No, not necessarily. It's because a 3-to-1 pattern weave is very expensive, very rare. It suggests that the shroud was one of the most expensive fabrics that you could buy at the time. Not that flax is all that expensive, but the way that it was manufactured with this very, very expensive 3-to-1 pattern weave. And it's very interesting that the scripture says Joseph of Arimathea, a rich man, purchased a fine linen cloth. Now, who was Joseph? Joseph was a Pharisee. He was a secret believer in Jesus, along with Nicodemus, who was also a Pharisee. They knew who Jesus was. And so Joseph of Arimathea is the man who owned the tomb in which Jesus would be placed. He's also the man who purchased the linen shroud. Now, why this extremely expensive linen? And why does it appear to be fine, twisted linen? Well, I think it may be because Joseph knew who Jesus was. It's very interesting that when you go into the Old Testament times and you look at the temple and the tabernacle in the wilderness, how were all of the curtains separating the Holy of Holies to the outer court, all of the curtains were made of fine twisted linen. The high priest had to take off his regular clothes and put on clothes that were made of fine twisted linen. This linen represented the holiness of God. Now, I think it's very interesting that Joseph may have known who Jesus was and decided that he was going to purchase not just a piece of linen, but fine twisted linen, perhaps even purchased it from the temple itself as a cloth suitable for something that a high priest would wear going into the temple. And it's very interesting that it appears that the shroud is made out of fine twisted linen, the exact kind of fabric that the high priest would wear going into the Holy of Holies. And I find that to be just one of the more intriguing things related to the shroud.